The biggest threat to your family wealth isn't a market crash. It's not a bad investment, it's not even a recession. The real threat is something quieter, something that doesn't show up as a loss on any statement, doesn't trigger any alarm, and destroys purchasing power so gradually that most families don't see it until it's already gone. And if you've spent years building financial security for your family, working, saving, protecting what you've built, there's a specific question you may have never asked yourself. Is your capital actually working, or is it just sitting there, silently losing ground? In the next 10 minutes, I'm going to show you the 70-30 capital rule, the exact allocation framework that families who preserve wealth across multiple generations use, and more importantly, why violating it in either direction produces the same result: a family that works hard and still ends up with less. Stay through the end, because the most important part, the implementation steps that let you audit and rebalance without triggering tax consequences, I've saved for the last section. Think of your family's capital as water behind a dam. Water that sits perfectly still in a sealed reservoir doesn't stay the same. It evaporates. It loses oxygen, it degrades. At 3% annual inflation, which financial planners call moderate, capital loses half its purchasing power every 24 years. Not through bad decisions, not through market exposure, just through time. If you're 45 years old today and you're building financial security for a child who might inherit at 50, that's 25 years of steady erosion. Money you intend to protect loses 53% of its real value, simply sitting in accounts designed to be safe. That's not a small miscalculation. That's the difference between leaving your family protected and leaving them with the illusion of protection. So the first principle of family wealth preservation is this: most of your capital has to move. It has to flow. It has to be deployed in vehicles that grow faster than inflation eats. That's the 70% side of the dam, the current that keeps the water alive. But here's where the metaphor gets uncomfortable. Because there's another way families lose wealth, one that doesn't look like negligence. It looks like caution. The families who deploy 90 or even 100% of their capital, who put everything to work and leave almost nothing in reserve, those families are building on a foundation with no cushion. And when life presents an emergency, which it always does, they're forced to do something that quietly destroys years of compounding. They sell at the wrong time. A $80,000 medical emergency, a legal expense, a roof that collapses. When you have no liquid reserve, that emergency doesn't cost $80,000. It costs $80,000 plus the tax consequences of an untimely liquidation, plus the compounding you just broke, plus whatever the market happened to be doing that month. What should have been a manageable setback becomes a wealth destruction event. And the families on the opposite side, the ones holding 80% of their capital in savings accounts to be safe. Those families watch inflation eat their inheritance slowly over decades, without a single mistake ever appearing on paper. Two completely different failure modes. Same outcome, your family inherits less than you believe you're protecting. The 70-30 capital rule exists precisely to prevent both. 70% of family capital deployed, not speculated, deployed in inflation-resistant, growth-oriented vehicles. The water that keeps moving. Diversified equities, real estate, inflation-protected securities. Assets that historically outpace inflation and build the value you intend to pass forward. 30% held in structured liquid reserve, not a single pile of cash, a dam with 3 gates, each opening at a different speed. The first gate is immediate access, roughly 10% of your total capital, 3 to 6 months of living expenses in a high-yield savings account. This is your true emergency fund, accessible within 24 hours for real crises. The second gate is short-term accessible, about 15% of total capital. Money market funds, short-term CDs, conservative bonds, accessible within 1 to 4 weeks. This covers planned large expenses, a home repair, a vehicle, a significant medical cost, without touching your deployed capital. And the third gate is something most families never build, an opportunity reserve. 5% of total capital, earmarked not for emergencies but for asymmetric moments. A real estate deal during a downturn. A market dislocation. A family business opportunity. Capital held specifically so that when the rare right moment appears, you have the ability to act without borrowing, without liquidating, without compromising the 70%. The specific 70-30 balance isn't arbitrary. It's the point where the capital actually working is sufficient to outpace long-term inflation, while the reserve is large enough to absorb real-world shocks without forcing premature liquidation. Shift to 80-20, you gain yield but lose cushion. When the shock comes, and it will come, you sell at cost. Shift to 60-40, you feel more secure, but now inflation is winning. Your financial security looks intact on paper while its real value quietly shrinks. The exact deployment vehicles within the 70% matter less than the principle. For families between $200K and $500K in net worth, a combination of low-cost index funds, residential real estate equity, and inflation-protected securities covers the essential bases. For families between $500K and $2M, you add investment property or real estate investment trusts and expand fixed income with inflation adjustment. The architecture scales, but the ratio holds. Here's where most conversations about capital allocation stop short. They explain the concept but leave the practical question unanswered. How do you actually get there from wherever you are today? The answer is a 5-step audit you can complete without a financial advisor, though the process will also show you clearly when professional guidance adds value. Step 1. List every asset with its current value and realistic time to access. Bank accounts, investment accounts, retirement accounts, real estate equity, cash value, and insurance. Everything. Step 2. Calculate your actual deployment to liquidity ratio. Most families who do this honestly are surprised by what they find. Either they're significantly overdeployed, more exposed than they realized, or they're holding far more in low-yield accounts than they understood. Step 3. Identify where the imbalance is. Which direction you're tilting determines everything about how you rebalance. Step 4. Build a 6-month rebalancing plan. Moving large amounts in a single transaction can trigger capital gains events that cost more than the rebalancing saves. A phased approach over 6 months maintains tax efficiency, while steadily moving toward the 70-30 structure. Step 5. Set an annual review. As your wealth grows, as market values shift, as family circumstances change, the ratio drifts. The families who preserve capital across generations aren't the ones who built the right structure once. They're the ones who maintained it. What changes after you implement the 70-30 rule isn't just your allocation. It's how you think about every financial decision going forward. Every question becomes answerable through a single lens. Does this move maintain the 70-30 balance? Should we pay down the mortgage aggressively or invest the extra capital? Check the ratio. Does one choice improve balance or damage it? Should we keep the inheritance in cash or deploy it? The ratio answers it. Should we sell the investment property to cover the renovation? Check first what your liquidity looks like before you make a move you can't reverse cleanly. Families who protect their financial security across generations aren't necessarily smarter investors. They have a North Star that prevents the 2 most common wealth-destroying behaviors: deploying everything and leaving themselves fragile, or holding everything and letting inflation do what market crashes couldn't. The 3-generation curse, the pattern where family wealth evaporates by the 3rd generation, isn't a mystery. It's the predictable outcome of what happens when capital sits still too long, or when a single bad moment forces a liquidation that breaks years of compounding. The 70-30 capital rule doesn't eliminate risk, nothing does. But it positions your family's wealth to absorb the inevitable shocks without structural damage, and to grow fast enough to stay ahead of the slow erosion that nobody notices until it's too late. 2 numbers, 1 ratio, 1 annual review, and the discipline to hold the line when emergencies and opportunities make it tempting to move the gate. If you found this useful, the next step is to run that 5-step audit on your own allocation. It takes less than an hour, and what it reveals will be worth every minute.